Hello, and welcome to the 9th part of this RWBY fanfiction reading of I Scream by TheNeopolitan. We're on chapter 29, and there's probably only about 2 videos left for me to finish reading this off, so... Yep. This is gonna be... I don't know. This is gonna end relatively soon, which is quite nice, because I would like to get on to other things, and having to record, like 10 parts of a series doesn't exactly help. So, yeah, let's just get going. Chapter 29. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Could Nick really be here? I watched him die. I took revenge on those who killed him. It didn't make any sense, but he was really here, and standing over the body of my friend. His smile took on a devilish twist, a face that he often used while taunting a target, and I knew that he didn't come back from the dead for anything good. "Neo, who is that?" Yang asked me, unsure of what to do. "I'll explain everything later. Get Wolf and get out of here. I'll hold him off," I told her, not taking my eyes off my old mentor for a second. "We can take him," Yang said confidently. "We're not a match for him. I am not just gonna leave you..." What was that? "I am not just gonna leave it..." "Yang," I said sharply, cutting her off. I looked over to her so she could see the seriousness in my eyes. "Please." My reaction caught her off guard. I never let myself be so open, to show that weakness. She could see how much trouble we were in if we didn't get away from him. Maybe she could see the fear that I usually hid so well. She nodded and became serious too. "Okay, but Neo, you better be right behind me or I'm coming back in for you," she warned. I just smiled, hoping that she could see how much I appreciated her and our friendship, and then shifted my attention back to Sleep Slicer. He revealed his large black umbrella from under his cloak. He slightly adjusted his standing position, and with his free hand motioned for us to come at him. We complied without any hesitation. I lunged first, but with Yang not even a second behind me. Everything after that was a blur of motion. I tried to strike him with my umbrella, but he casually blocked me with his own. Thinking I was unguarded, he aimed a knee at my gut, but I kicked it away, careful to watch his movements and not step on Wolf. Yang came next and aimed a loaded gauntlet at his face. With minimal movement and little effort, he moved his head out of the way to avoid the shot and also block her next blow to his stomach. Though he didn't need to, he took a few steps back away from Wolf. Every instinct inside of me screamed to look down at Wolf, to crouch beside him and check that he was okay. I couldn't, though. That was the exact opening that Sleep Slicer would need. Wolf, whether I liked it or not, was my weakness. The man across from me grinned, flipping his purple bangs to the side as he waited for me to make my move. "Yang," I said as calmly as possibly, "get him out of here." I could tell that she wanted to protest, but she didn't. Instead, she pulled Wolf up and turned to leave. Before she did, she gave me a warning. "I mean it, Neo. Don't fall too far behind. This place could blow at any second." Her voice was strange, full of concern and worry for me. It wasn't like anything I was used to. "I won't," I told her. I raised my umbrella, ready to attack again. Yang then began to haul Wolf back to the exit. I eyed my opponent, and the small wave of guilt rushed over me. There was little chance of me making it out of this alive. If my mentor didn't kill me, the fire would. I just lied to Yang. When Yang was out of sight, Nicholas laughed. First was a slight chuckle, then out loud laughter. It was surprising to me, but I didn't drop my guard. "What happened to you?" he asked, his laughter fading away. I narrowed my eyes and didn't reply. Disobeying orders, leaving the job, joining them, letting your feelings control you, caring about them. You used to be the perfect soldier, a silent, obedient, cold-blooded killer. He sighed. "They broke you, ruined you." "What happened to you?" I forced myself to speak. In front of him, it was much harder. I had trained for so long to hold my tongue that even now it was hard to get it to move. "You were dead." "That's not exactly true," he smirked at me, then lunged forward with an attack. I knocked his outstretched umbrella aside and tried to strike him with my own. He grabbed it and pulled me forward, bringing his knee up. I raised mine too, and our knees collided. What I didn't realize is that he had already moved his umbrella again and swiped it under the foot that I was standing on and fell. I managed to gain some control and rolled into a crouch. "You see, I had it all planned out," he began to explain as I lunged at him. "We crossed umbrellas and stood for a moment, pushing them against each other like swords. It was supposed to be the end of your training, the final push that you needed." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He planned it? It wasn't real? He was smart. He was stronger than me, and with a shove sent me back a step. I dodged his umbrella strike and aimed my own umbrella at his knee. He blocked easily, and I aimed a kick to his side. He blocked that too, which I had predicted. I placed my hand on his knee and swung myself upwards, hoping to pull a maneuver similar to the one that I had used on Yang. However, I miscalculated. He sighed. I swore internally, realizing that he had seen this coming. He was the one to train me, after all. He caught my leg and used it to swing me, sending me flying into a few burning crates. I hit them with enough force to break them, bruising my back as they splintered and burning myself as the flaming pieces landed on me. I hissed and brushed them off. They had burned holes in some of my clothes and burned my skin, but nothing too serious. I still managed to pull myself to my feet. Everything ached as my movements were slowed slightly. I barely noticed that the fire had spread towards a particularly large stack of crates. I anticipated that it would drive you over the edge, give you the desire that you needed to kill on your own. That bit worked out perfectly. You were so upset by my passing that you let the desire for revenge get the better of you. You released your other self and killed everyone. It was a beautiful thing, my masterpiece. Isn't like... I don't know, I thought his original plan was like... I thought he just said that it's not having emotions, but then but I don't know, it's stupid. "But I messed you up. How could I know letting you feel for me would leave you so open to everyone else?" He shook his head again in disappointment. Oh my god. My heart squeezed in pain. Everything that he had shown me, everything that we had shared had been through. It had all been an act. It was almost hard to believe than him coming back from the dead. He was the only family that I remembered, the one who raised me and protected me. I thought I had lost everything when he was gone. I killed for him. All that bloodshed was for nothing. All of it was for nothing. It hurt worse than being thrown through the flaming crate. I was so distracted by the weight of everything that I didn't see him coming towards me again. There was no time for me to block as he kicked my side, forced me down to the ground. I tried to roll and push myself to my hands and knees, but he kicked me again. Okay. My throat hurts, so I need to drink some water. I was planning on grabbing water after I finished recording the last video, but I just didn't, and I just did it before starting this one, so throat still hurts. Okay. I was so distracted by the weight of everything that I didn't see him coming. Okay, I did that already. "Is that the best you can do, little Neo?" he asked, kicking me in the side. I tried to crawl away, but he kicked me again, hard enough that I felt my ribs crack. A small cry of pain escaped my lips. "You know how to make it stop. You just have to give up control," he sneered. I knew that he was talking about giving in to her, my scary Neo mode. She was crazy and murderous, but a better fighter. She was my only chance at beating him in a fight. I closed my eyes and gritted my teeth as he kicked me again. I couldn't give in. I didn't know a for sure way of getting her back under control. I pictured Wolf from my nightmare, all bloodied and dying for my actions. I couldn't take that risk. "It's no matter," he was saying. "I'll get it right next time. I'll just break you down and start over from the beginning. You won't have any of those silly feelings getting in the way. You'll only kill and take orders." He had a crazy look on his face now. Only one similar to the grin that Scary Neo used before she kills. I looked up at him, and just behind him I could see the fire starting to cover a large stack of boxes. I looked up at him, and just behind him I could... I don't even know what I was... Okay. I looked up at him, and just behind him I could see the fire starting to cover the large stack of boxes. My eyes widened in fear as I realized that they were about to explode. I rolled out of my attacker's reach, snatched up my umbrella, opened it, and teleported away in a white light. Using the last of my strength, I made it to the mouth of the tunnel. Yang was there, probably on her way back down to get me. A look of relief washed over her, mixed with a look of concern for my injuries. "Neo, thank goodness you made it," she was saying. "Get back," I warned, but the look of fear on... Oh, what? Come on! Just go away. "Get back," I warned, but the look of fear on her face told me that my warning of the explosion behind me came too late. The glow of flames reflected in Yang's eyes. The force of the blast knocked everyone that was near the mouth of the cave back several feet. My body collided with a rock, my vision blurred, managing to focus just long enough for me to see the underground base collapse just before I slipped back into the dark of unconsciousness. Okay. Chapter 30. Everyone was in rough shape after that. John seemed to heal the fastest, but was almost sick with worry for his team. Ren had finally woken up, but was still recovering from the pretty severe head wound that had caused him to pass out in the first place. Nora was stubborn. She wouldn't even leave Ren's side long enough for the nurses to look at her arm, which had been cut open in the multiple bruises from fighting. Pierre was told to stay off her knee for a while. She had injured that in the explosion. Team RWBY was worse off than Team Juniper. Yang was being the strongest. Despite the dislocated shoulder from the explosion and multiple cuts from the debris, she was making bad jokes to try to cheer people up. It wasn't working. Ruby had twisted her ankle up pretty bad and used her crutches to limp over to Weiss's bed silently. She was the leader and felt that she had failed her team. No consoling from her sister could convince her otherwise. Yang was bedbound due to blood loss from multiple wounds. Weiss faded in and out of consciousness. The wound on her side was pretty bad. The nurses said that she should heal fine, but for now she needed to rest. In Team Rainbow, where do I even begin? Both was suffering some memory loss and other effects from a concussion and had a large head wound. Rage sat on the edge of his bed, staring down at the floor. Physically, she was the least injured of the team. She had a badly bruised wrist and had to relocate her shoulder. Nothing too severe, but she was emotionally damaged. She had let go of herself for revenge and allowed those that she was responsible for get badly hurt. On top of that, she had let Mora's killer get away not once but twice, and the second time she almost killed another of our teammates. Wolf was still unconscious. Sleep Slicer had caught him with a poison blade. It had been eating away at him, but the nurses had caught on to it. They said he should wake up soon. Me, I was on the end of Wolf's bed with my knees tucked up to my chest. If you had thought that I had been quiet before, I was even more so now. I couldn't get myself to say anything to anyone. Even when Yang had thrown a bad joke in my direction, I had just stared at her with a blank expression until she left me alone. I rested my head on my knee and tried to ignore the pain. I had a large gash on my cheek. They said if I was lucky, it wouldn't scar. I had a large bump on my head from the explosion. There were also burns and scratches. None of them hurt quite as much as my cracked ribs. My arms and legs were covered in bruises from trying to match my old mentor's moves. The nurses insisted repeatedly that I stay in my own bed, but they couldn't get me to move. Sometimes I'd make an illusion just to make it seem like I was asleep, but then one of the nurses would touch it and it would break and they'd come back to me. Eventually, they just stopped asking. None of the physical wounds compared to how messed up I was on the inside. I had seen a ghost. My mentor, the man that physically raised me, the one who created whatever I was, had come back from the dead to tell me everything that I knew was a lie. Everything that I had done, every reason for why I had become a killer was a lie. He never really liked me. He liked scaring you, and there was no telling how far he would go to get her back. Before using her abilities was easy. It was a way to distance myself from killing. I usually got the job done and she'd be satisfied enough to calm down on my own. But now, how can I guarantee that I could get back her back under control? That she wouldn't go after my friends? There's a good chance that she could see them as holding me back and decide to get rid of them. But now she was my only chance at beating Sleep Slicer. That's such a stupid last name. It's so hard to say. And if all that wasn't enough, all of them had disappeared. Nicholas Sleepwalker, Cinderfall, and the White Fang General, and their largest bomb that they had managed to get away with, the one that could level a city, were all completely gone. Hey, Yang said loudly, pulling me out of my thoughts. It hadn't actually been that loud. I just didn't realize that she had managed to come stand right in front of me. I sighed with exhaustion and brought my eyes up to hers, silently asking her what she wanted. Walk with me, she said, holding out her hand that wasn't in a sling to help me off the bed. I wasn't feeling up for a walk or for talking to anyone. I stared at her outstretched hand and she shook my head no without much effort. I'm not asking. She grabbed my arm and yanked me off the bed, being forceful but still careful not to hurt my ribs too badly, and all with one arm. I almost forgot how strong she was. For a second, we just stared at each other, me silently telling her with a sort of glare that I really wasn't interested, and her matching me with a look of determination that told me I didn't have a choice. Are you going to walk, or do I have to drag you? She said in a not very nice tone. I jerked my hand away from hers, but rolled my eyes, giving in. Good, she said with a nod. Follow me. Before I moved, I glanced back to Wolf. He'll be fine, Yang sighed. It was now being her turn for a dramatic eye roll. I let out a short, huffy breath and followed Yang out. It was quite a walk out to the cliffs. We walked in silence, and for a moment we just stayed at the edge of the cliffs, looking over the emerald forest. Finally, Yang took a deep breath and turned to face me. What is going on with you, Neo? She asked gently. I shook my head and faced the cliffs. She walked me all the way out here for a heart-to-heart chat. I wasn't in the mood. She put her hand on my shoulder and said softly, You don't have to go through this alone, Neo. I scoffed silently. I needed to do this on my own. I always pulled through whatever was happening by myself before. I shook her hand off. Don't shut me out, Neo, she told me, still soft but slightly annoyed. I wanted to tell her that I wasn't mad at her, that I was tired and worried, and it made me irritated, but I didn't know how, so I just folded my arms across my chest. If that's how you want it to be, fine, she said, her tone turning harsh. Now I made her angry. I sighed, wondering how to explain everything. I felt a hard shove on my shoulder. It caught me off guard and I fell to the ground. I glared up at Yang, giving her a look that demanded, What the hell? But she wasn't looking at me. Her gaze was lowered and her hair covered her eyes. Her mouth set in a hard line before raising her head. Her eyes glared into mine, glowing red. She was mad, but I was getting to that point too. Ignoring the pain in my ribs, I pushed myself to my feet and stood closer to her, not even an inch away from her as a sort of silent challenge. I glared up at her, wondering what she wanted from me. What was her deal? I opened my mouth to ask her, but nothing came out. She gritted her teeth and shoved me back again. Instead of falling down, I only slid back a little ways. What was her problem? Why was she doing this? I adjusted my footing and shoved her back. Not waiting a second, she spun around. I waited for her to shove me again, but instead she kicked my feet out from under me. My anger was getting the better of me. If she wanted a fight, she was getting one. I twisted my legs around and pulled myself back to my feet and faced off with her again. When I got close enough, she aimed a kick at me. I dodged with ease, stepped closer, and shoved her shoulders roughly. I didn't want to fight her, damn it, but no one was going to push me around. What's your problem? I snapped finally. She ducked her head again, and I got ready for her to charge me. To my surprise, she brought her eyes back to mine, and instead of them being their angry, burning red, they were her normal lilac, and they had a determined look in them. You're angry, she said calmly. Good, now control that anger. Not trusting my voice to convey the right message, I glared at her, speaking with my eyes to say, this is controlled. Instead of glaring back or snapping at me, she laid her hand on my shoulder again. Control doesn't mean holding everything inside. Control is knowing how to channel it. She grinned at me. Trust me, you're looking at a girl who used to have some pretty serious anger issues. I involuntarily switched my eye color as realization hit me. Aang's rage mode was pretty similar to my scary Neo mode in a way. All of the power that she had gained when she was angry must have been difficult to keep in control, especially when she was younger. How am I supposed to channel it? I asked in confusion. Holding all of that stuff inside is bad for you, Neo. You need to let it all out. I arched an eyebrow at her, not knowing what she wanted me to do. She used the hand on my shoulder to direct me so that I was facing down the cliff, staring down at the emerald forest. Scream, she said simply. and I turned my head to look at her. She wanted me to do what now? Scream, she repeated. We're far enough from Beacon that no one will hear. It'll be good for you, see? She took a deep breath and held it in for a moment before shouting over the canyon. It wasn't a high-pitched shriek, more like an enraged war cry. It echoed throughout the trees, even frightening a small flock of Nevermore, and caused them to fly away in fright. When she had let the full breath out, Yang took another breath to calm and steady herself before turning back to me. Now you do it. I won't judge, I swear. I glanced back at her, then closed my eyes, facing the forest again. Following her instruction, I took a deep breath, filling my lungs. I opened my mouth. At first, nothing came out. Then I remembered everything that I was going through, the pain and frustration of everything. I screamed, forcing the air from my lungs, almost forcing the pressure of everything out of my body. My fears, my pains, my sorrows. All of them were rushing out of me, washing out of me like receding waves. I kept screaming, releasing everything that I had been fighting to hold back, everything that I had forced to stay deep inside. And it felt good, like a pressure being lifted off of me. I opened my eyes and gasped for air, realizing that I hadn't taken a deep enough breath. I realized with a small amount of pride that my scream had sounded just as fierce as Yang's and echoed in the trees below us. A grin rested on my face. Feel better? Yang asked me. I nodded and looked back to her. Yeah, I smiled. Thanks, I blushed for a bit. That was a stupid way to thank her for helping me get through this, but just because I had found my voice doesn't mean that I was good with words. She smiled back and nodded, seeming to understand. I took a deep breath as a sense of calm came over me. It had been a long time since I felt truly in control of myself. A smile rested on my lips as I followed Yang back to Beacon. Whew. Okay. It'd be nice to know what chapter I'm on right now, but of course I can't, because why would I ever want to know that? Okay, chapter 31. Okay, whatever. We'll do this. When Yang and I got back to the infirmary, everyone seemed to be in a little better mood. Even Raish managed a small smile every now and then. Yang started up her jokes again, and the others joined in, mostly with bad puns, but we laughed. Wolf didn't wake up that night, or a few nights after that. I spent most of my time looking after him while the others went back to their class. Our friends brought me food, and the nurses were nice and understanding enough to make up a spare bed beside Wolf for me to sleep on. Our friends in Team Ruby and Team Juniper visited often so I didn't get lonely. Occasionally, Rage or Bolt would come and look after Wolf so I could continue training and recover from my own wounds. Yang and the others were healing well and improving their fighting style. Sometimes when I sparred with Yang, she would try to push me into my scary Neo mode. I had confessed to her that I thought that it was the only way for me to beat Sleep Slicer, but that I couldn't control it. She insisted that I had to learn, and reminding me that control wasn't just holding it inside, but I wasn't ready. I'd come to care for Yang too. What if we tried it, and scaring you hurt her? I wasn't willing to take that chance with any of my friends. I thought about it while I changed into my pajamas and crawled into my bed beside Wolf's. The beds were on wheels, so I had pushed mine right to the edge of his. I laid my head on my pillow and reached out for Wolf's open hand, resting mine on his. Hey, I said softly to him. Even though I knew he couldn't hear me, I had gotten into the habit of talking to him before I would fall asleep. I still wasn't very good at talking to people, but Wolf was different. He always had been easier to talk to. For some reason, I was still more comfortable talking to him than anyone else. His eyes moved behind his closed lids. The nurse said it was because he was dreaming. I traced my middle fingertip across his palm. Are you thinking about waking up any time soon? You're really starting to scare me. My fingers drifted up the vein in his arm and slowly back down to his palm. Everyone is worried about you. Raish and Bolt especially. They're not doing so good. I began tracing his fingers with mine. Or I suppose Bolt is doing alright. He doesn't joke around as much as the two of you used to, though. I think it's mostly because he's worried about you and Raish. And Raish, well, she puts up a good act. In front of everyone else, she looks completely fine. Strong and determined even. But I can see it. She's breaking, Wolf. Bolt even says that she cries in her sleep. I pressed my palm back down to Wolf's, remembering the night that after more had died. We had all come together to comfort each other, even falling asleep together. We needed to come together again. We just need you back, Wolf, somehow. I don't know. It feels like you coming back will fix everything. Your silly grin and a dumb joke might just be what we need to pull together again. Suddenly, pressure around my fingers caused me to gasp in surprise and glance quickly back down to my fingers. Wolf had wrapped his hand around my own. I looked back up to his face to see his eyes blink rapidly before opening. Wolf, I breathed in relief as he tried to figure out where he was. He was startled and a bit frightened, which, given our past jobs, was understandable. For a moment, he was frantic. I sat up quickly and placed my hands gently and firmly on his shoulders. You're okay. You're okay, I told him soothingly. He began to calm down, and my eyes switched color, and I realized the truth to my words. You're okay. He had woken up. He was actually okay. Neo? He asked, unable to focus now. Unable to find the words that described the joy and relief that I felt, I just hugged the wolf fawn as close to me. At first it shocked him, but he quickly recovered and hugged me back. What? He said in a teasing tone as he returned to his normal self. Were you worried about me? Unable to answer him, I just hugged him tighter, balling up the back of his shirt in my hands as the weight of my past worry from him washed back over me. I had been so worried. The thought of what would have happened if he hadn't woken up loomed over me. Hey, he said softly, pulling back gently so he could look at my face, keeping his hands on my thin shoulders. Are you okay? A tear slid down my cheek. I took a deep breath and continued, even though my voice shook. I almost lost you. He cupped my face with his hands and wiped the tear away with his thumb. Were you really that worried about me? He murmured softly. Of course, you dummy. I bowed my head as I bit my lip. I loved him. I did. But how was I going to tell him that after my mentor and my plan that had nearly killed him? The wolf tucked a loose lock of my hair behind my ear. You what? I brought my eyes up to his, their color switching involuntarily. I let go of my bottom lip and took a deep breath, almost as if I were back on the cliffs with Yang and about to scream. I love you, Wolf. His eyes widened and his ears twitched in surprise. You love me? He repeated, as if he couldn't believe the words that escaped my lips. I nodded, blushing furiously. I couldn't see, but I bet that the color of my face was even more pink than those parts of my hair. I held my breath, waiting to see what Wolf would do. My heart was fluttering fast, threatening to beat out of my chest. Wolf blinked in surprise, and I waited for him to hopefully repeat my words, or to tell me that I was being ridiculous, that we were just friends. But he did neither of those things. Instead, he brought his lips crashing down onto mine, but not too hard. A small moan of surprise and pleasure escaped me, and my hand slid up his neck and entwined in his hair. He moved as well. Can like it just like I don't know. He moved as well. One of his hands drifted to my lower back and the other into my hair as he pulled me closer. A rush of electricity flowed through me and my heart beat even faster. I tilted my head and deepened the kiss. I wished that it could have lasted forever, but we had to pull apart so we could breathe. I love you too, he panted in a low voice. I wanted to kiss him again, but the curtain that separated our beds from the rest of our infirmary wing was drawn back quickly to reveal a very flustered nurse. Her eyes darted away from us, and I became very aware that Wolf's heart monitor was beating rapidly. I blushed even deeper now, probably a shade of red, and quickly removed my hand from Wolf's hair. I'll just come back and check on him later, she stammered before quickly closing the curtain again. Wolf and I broke out into a fit of laughter, but calmed down eventually and looked back to each other. He still had an arm around my waist and a hand cupped around my cheek. He gently brushed his thumb over my cheek and said, I've never seen you blush like that, which of course only made my blush deeper as I became more self-conscious. In your eyes, I've never seen them do that before. I like it. My eyes widened suddenly as I tried to remember what color I had changed them to last, before I came to the realization that my last change had been involuntary. They were both pink now. The sound of fast footsteps caught my attention. Someone was running this way. I released Wolf and sat back, keeping my hands on my lap. He let me go, but took my hand. The curtains were thrown open again, but this time by our teammates, who launched themselves at us, wrapping up Wolf and I into a sort of group hug. "So you decided to wake up," Raish laughed with a mixture of joy and relief. "About time," Bolt taunted. We quickly filled Wolf in about what had happened and how everyone was doing. Well, Raish reported that Wolf should be fine enough to come back to our dorm and back to classes. Bolt added in a joke about how I could come back too and didn't have to babysit anymore. Wolf gave me a surprised look when he heard that I had been by his side the whole time. Raish noticed our holding hands but didn't say anything. A nurse came over and checked over Wolf before clearing him to come back to our room with us. Out of habit, I shoved my bed against Wolf's. Bolt and Raish gave each other a look and a grin, but said nothing. Wolf watched me closely, still silent, which I was grateful for, because I had no idea how to explain what I was doing. Staying on my half of the beds, I reached over and took Wolf's hand while Raish shut off the lights. At some point in the night, Wolf and I had drifted closer to each other. I hadn't realized until I released his hand and rolled over, my back touching his chest. I froze, worried that my movements had woken him. He stayed soundly asleep, but his arm instinctively wrapped around my stomach. I sighed happily, comforted by his warmth, and drifted back to sleep. Oh, okay. So, only 3 more chapters to go. Oh my god. That is chapters, or that is whatever. That is more of Ice Cream. Things are happening, obviously. I don't exactly remember what happens next, but I think it's mostly just kind of random stuff. Like, there's no actual, like, true conflict in the rest of this. Like, there's no fighting. That's what I meant. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out next time, because I don't remember anything else as far as I know. I didn't even really remember this, because a lot of this has been read a long time ago, which kind of sucks, but I don't exactly have... I don't know. These stories take a long time to read, and, you know, it just makes it so much more difficult for me to, like, keep up. Because I can generally read it in my head faster than I can read it out loud, so it makes it a little more difficult, especially when a lot of the time I wasn't even, like, you know, recording anything while I was reading things for, like, months on end. So it's not exactly a good system, being so behind. So yeah, right, we're done.